Left, I have Honorable Joe Mtambo, who is a former Member of Parliament for Mwingi Central, and Mark Bichachi, who's a political analyst, basically just to review the week that has been. And of course, we can start off with the murders most foul, and you've already alluded to that and, sort of gone through them on the headlines because they're still on the headlines. But maybe just casting the net a little bit further, Mark, in terms of what the justice system and how it's working, and the fact that we've had quite a number of murders that have taken place over a long time but have not been resolved. I mean, we could go back in time and see quite a number of them, and what would be different from these ones. And I'm talking about prominent people. For instance, we have the IEBC gentleman, I forget his name now.
Musando.
Yes, Chris Msando. We have the likes of Joe Mushero. I mean, we could go on and on and on. And whether our justice system is finally now working.
You know, what is interesting and what Kenyans should thank God for is that the president's fight against corruption has removed the title of untouchable from people. And this is so critical because you remember when a certain pastor allegedly caused an accident on the highway. You can remember how long it took for him to be arrested, let alone be taken to trial. And of course, there was always these twists and turns, as though you could almost see as if the wheels of justice were trying to cover up what had happened. But what is critical, especially with the Obado case, is that from the beginning, credence to the media, the coverage has been spot on. You know, there's been no fear or nor favor for him. And even further, you'll find that the police and the DPP and the DCI were very quick in sending detectives down to the scene of the crime. They were very quick in putting the pieces together. The information that has come out, even a lay person can give you the train of events, and that is critical. But that is against the backdrop, and that speaks to our leaders. And what I would like to see more of our leaders is every time people are talking about let's fight crime, let's fight corruption, we are only mentioning Uhuru Kenyatta. We are not even mentioning the Minister of Internal Security. It seems as if to me that without Uhuru Kenyatta, Nurdin Haji and Kinoti, we do not have a fight against criminality in this country. So it is time that we had an inclusive conversation where people are also calling in and texting into KTN and saying, by the way,
this is happening.
I'll
cut you short a little bit and come to Honorable Joe Mtambo. And maybe let's look at also our investment as a country in crime detection and solving. And for instance, we don't have, forensic labs that are able to have, because time is critical. When a crime is committed, time is of essence for us to be able to get to the bottom of it. But we seem not to have invested in that area as a country.
I think right now we are geared towards investing into it. I'm close to the systems, and I know this is happening. And I want actually to echo what Cheche said, that beside Uhuru Kenyatta and Nurdin Haji, we need to understand there are other, as we call them, KYM, Kandaya Moko. There are other people who are actually playing very vital role when it comes to this. You need to understand this docket is under Ministry of Interior. Where's the PS? Of Interior. This is one person who does not sleep. You need to understand the police who are going to arrest these people. They under the PS of Interior. This is one man who is waking up every morning, coordinating meetings on a daily basis. Do we talk about him? No. So there are
do we really need to talk about them? Because at the end of the day, we want the crime solved.
Why are we talking about Uhuru then? If we don't need to talk about individuals, why are we talking about Nurdin? Because he's the person who is forwarding the paper. But I want to tell you, there is also that constable person, there are many police officers, there is that corporal, there is that inspector, who are doing a lot of work, and we need also to give them credit. If you are shouting to give credit to people, spread it all over to the people who are working on this matter, so that everyone involved feels, appreciated and recognized.
But is that practical? So, for instance, if Standard Group did well, the CEO probably gets the accolades, whereas it's a whole institution that's working. And my point here being that if we have the right leaders in place, then things seem to work properly.
the only difference with this is we are talking about a societal behavioral change. You see, the fight against criminality and indeed corruption in this country is not just about arresting people. It's about changing what is the norm for the average Kenyan. And I'll give you an example. A lot of the time when your phone is snatched in the middle of Nairobi city, Nairobians find it so difficult to walk to the nearest police station to report it. Why? Because the procedures are long. Two, your expectation is low on receiving back your phone. So when it comes to managing not just the criminality of the issue, but fighting the psychological war that we need to overcome as a society in order that you are able to see a citizen going to the police station and reporting a police officer and saying, this police officer solicited a bribe from me. To achieve that, then you need to tell as many stories as possible. You need to talk about the agents in the DCI's office who have been able to bring out these corruption cases. You need to bring them out, because that is how you etch these gains in the minds of the public. You need to also almost make legends out of these people, sort of like how it was done for Shaw in the 60s and 70s. And that's what needs to happen. J. Edgar Hoover for the FBI. If you're going to do that, you need to create that psychological basis. And for that reason, you need to tell these stories, and needs to be expanded beyond the person of the president, the person of the DCI, the person of the DPP, so that now we begin to highlight these stories, so that now it's global versus individual.
All right, and Mheshimiwa, moving further afield, what is it that you'd expect to see for these cases to be closed? Because like I started by mentioning, we've had so many cases that have hit the headlines, and this is mainly because they're high-profile murders, but never getting to the bottom of them.
You know, to me, it's all about the evidence one have. You can profile a case, but if you do not have tangible evidence to convict or to nail somebody, trust you me, that person will go or will get scot-free out of that case, whether you like it or not, because the court will not rely on how many this case has been heard in which television or who said about who spoke about it out there. It is the evidence brought before a judge, and there is no way a judge would convict someone without evidence. So the onus goes back now. What Bichachi is saying, that it is the onus, because if I am the one who went to the crime of sin and you do not recognize me and I have the evidence and you are talking about Bichachi, okay, fine, deal with him. I put my evidence aside. That also kills the case. So the moment we say, okay, it was Mutambo was there, it was Bichachi was there, it was that senior and the junior officers. So they feel recognized. Yes, the junior officer will say, yes, I was there and I saw the murder weapon. No, suppose it's did not mention me, so since I was not mentioned, I can keep the murder weapon with me. So I think you need to understand where we are coming from when we say it is a collaboration and a concerted effort by each and every individual who is playing the part, not only the judge and the DPP and DCI. Even the PS, even the police officer, the constable police officer who went to the crime of sin, who is not even mentioned anywhere. I think it is important. I've been in America and I've seen officers being paraded and rewarded for doing, just saving a child life. Saving a child life. And they are paraded out there and they are recognized. Not the boss. Like you are saying that if Standard does well, the CEO. If Standard does well, I will not recognize the CEO, I will recognize you.
All right, Mark, in terms of our ability to have forensic evidence scrutinized and brought to court, because an important part that Mheshimiwa brings in is the evidence. At the end of the day, the judge will only work with what he has on the table as evidence, regardless of whether that case shows that I was at the crime of sin and I may even be the one who committed the crime, but without now evidence that, what do they call it, goes beyond any shadow of a doubt. Yes. It cannot. But our forensic, labs.
First, we thank God that finally our forensic labs are under construction, and I think they are due for completion if they've not already been completed. So that's one good thing. But the quality of evidence in this country, as Mheshimiwa and yourself have pointed out, has always been a major reason why a lot of cases have collapsed. And one of the worrying things is, for example, Kenyan CCTVs have an ability to detect crime and switch themselves off when crime is about to happen. This is true of our MP who was shot near Nyayo House. It is true of Jacob Juma. It is true of this lady, Monica. You understand? So the ability of us to collect evidence and to store that evidence and to present it in court is what has been a missing link for a long time. But what I really thank God for, especially in this case of Sharon, is literally, even if you read the newspapers, you can see the quality, the phone tracking. You can see the timeline, the sequencing of events. You can see how people have been placed and evidenced to have been in a certain place at a certain time. And those are very critical things. So definitely there is improvement. Will it deliver justice? Time will tell. But is there the DCI, the DPP, and all those organizations, are they doing a much better job? I must say
there's an improvement.
Yeah, there's a great improvement.
All right, and we'll wait and leave that now for now. As of course, we follow up and see how these cases are going to roll out. But also, just to bring to memory that there's so many cases that have been left unresolved, and of course, we'll follow up on that. But another story that caught my attention this week is to do with our preparedness for examinations. Even in today's paper, I have seen that the Belio Kipsang basically came out to raise some concerns. And this seems to be something that we never seem to be getting right. Mark, in terms of our preparedness for examinations, we are now in September going to October. We soon are going to have KCSE examinations taking place, but yet we're still not prepared. Yet our examination system is one that judges our children on one examination.
Personally, my personal opinion is, I think that this hinging the fate of someone's entire life on one examination is unfair. And consequent to that, then you find that the cases of cheating increase. And the cases of cheating increase because the stakes are so high. And I'll give you an example. You could catch malaria a day to your exam. Okay, and now you can't be able to perform as best you could. So I think, for me, I think that whole KCP model needs to be reformed, and you need to have continuous assessment. But what I find even more funny is I think it's on one of the pages in the Standard, you'll find a story saying that a certain school and a certain school are on the watch list for cheating. How is it a school? You understand? Because if you're on the watch list for cheating, it means you are known for cheating. So how did you remain a school and then still be on a watch list for cheating?
Speaking to the systems that we have in place.
So what needs to happen? And I beg the ministry to listen to me. The education ministry is known for knee-jerk reactions. A school bus has an accident, you change the timings of the school. A school bus has an accident, now all school buses are yellow. And they still overlap. They still do very criminal things with their yellow buses. Yellow is not a color that automatically brings road safety. You need to address the underlying issues. So what needs to happen is our country needs to address the underlying issues of our education system. Because it does not matter if you keep rolling with a car that has one flat tire. It does not matter what kind of fuel you put inside, what kind of engine you have, it will still not move correctly. And our education system needs an overhaul because it's not really even producing, and this is true, the government has admitted, it's not producing the kind of graduates we even need for our job market. So an overhaul is needed. It's time we looked at each other in the face and realized that we need to do something not cosmetic like the recent trial at changing the curriculum. We need to do a proper overhaul. That's the reality.
All right, Honorable Mtambo, maybe your comments on the fact that on one of those stories, again in the Standard, apparently in Kisii and Garissa, some schools are collecting money from parents for them to be able to, get access or leakage to these examinations. Now, my concern here is it's reached a point where the stakes are so high, like Mark has mentioned, to a point where even parents are involved. In other words, this is no longer even just a ministry issue.
You see, it's getting interesting because, and more tricky because of the level of the examination we are talking about here. And the stakes are becoming higher because we know you miss it, you are out. And that's why we are saying the system needs to be changed. You know, the parents also invest on their child, and they would want to see their child go through. You can imagine a scenario whereby you have invested in your child, and when they do not have papers, then they'll become nothing, or you'll have to take them back to school. We need to understand we have only 3 levels of examination. That is in Standard 8, in Form 4, and university. Unless now you want to take it further on your own. In the primary curriculum, you need to have at least 3 or 4 certificates which can be used in other avenues to get your job. In secondary school, you need to have at least 2 or 3. You remember those days when we used to have examination in Form 2 and then Form 4, and if you fail in Form 2 or if you failed in Form 4, you can still use a certificate for Form 2. So, but today, we depend on only one certificate, which will not be sufficient enough for you to get a job. And I think that's why the stakes are becoming so high. Then number 2 also, we need also to be talking about what is happening. And I like what is happening today in our country, that the media has come out and started highlighting issues as they are. And the same thing goes to governance. If we do not talk of which county is performing better, vis-a-vis of which one is not performing, then the status quo will remain. We've been treated to people not having salaries in the county. We are not saying that in Nairobi, for example, the county governor, the Nairobi governor is paying salary on this particular date so that others can emulate. You get the point. Once we keep quiet, then things tend to be not normal. But if we talk about them, if we say in Mombasa, people were not paid, and in Nairobi, people were paid earlier. Why are we paying people in Nairobi and not in Mombasa? Something is amiss somewhere. Something is amiss. So we need to highlight all the issues so that Kenyans can understand what is happening from the point they are at.
Okay, and maybe expanding this a little bit further, Mark, and we are here many times as Kenyans, look at Kenyans on Twitter, look at Kenyans on the streets, complaining about a government that is corrupt, complaining that the president is not doing enough, complaining that, corruption has become too rife. But let's go back to now the basics. And like I mentioned, parents who are colluding with teachers. What does that do to the student? What does that do to our moral fabric over time? Because these are the same students who are now going to have a past that is not genuine. Yes. But what seed have we planted in them in terms of how to get to, where they need to be?
I wish we were planting a seed. In this case, we've planted a tree. Because
with the roots in it.
Yes, this is a fully grown package, not waiting for fruit. And the reason why I use that analogy is I keep saying that Kenya is a deeply amoral society. You see, it is the greatest fraud to bequeath yourself intelligence when you don't have it. It's fraud to self. You're deceiving yourself.
And maybe just to pose you there, Mark, what is our definition of intelligence? Because the reason why this is happening is because we've put so much emphasis on academics.
Exactly.
Yet people may not be intelligent in class, but might be intelligent in other ways.
And that's the issue, because you see, let's look at the typical parent. Typical parent, especially in Nairobi, your child goes to school before you. Okay, because when I was driving here at 6 in the morning, I found students already on the road, and I know the parents are asleep. So you don't have time for your children. And in our psychological post-colonial thinking, we believe that the only provision a child needs is food, shelter, and an education. Now, that purpose of that education has been defeated, because all you want is your child to have a certificate and not the education, because there's a difference. Because you can have a certificate without the education. In fact, yesterday, I was being told of a joke that there was an Ethiopian citizen who was relocating to Ethiopia from Kenya. And he called one of his good friends, who happens to be an under minister in Ethiopia. And he calls him and he says, "What would you like me to bring from Kenya? You know, I have a lot of money, I've made money. What should I bring?" And he said, "It would be good if you also have a PhD. And he said, "I don't have one now, but when I come next month, I'll come with it." Because, and this is a true story, you can fact check me on this, because the minister talked about it publicly. But that tells you about the value of a certificate beyond the education itself. And that's why one of the most critical things we must ask, the fundamental question, is what is the purpose of our education system? Is it for someone to score a pass mark, or is it for someone to identify their gifts and talents that they can use even if they drop out in class 8? That's a critical question, because if your purpose is for someone to pass KCSE, then you will have holiday tuition, then you will have cheating in exams, then you will have children who have not gone home an entire year because they are cramming mole concept. If you focus on producing a child who can think for themselves and use their God-given abilities to succeed, then you will spend more time with these children. Then you will give them more opportunity to be able to practice what talents they have beyond the curriculum. Because today, to be honest, if a child is a musician, if a child is a footballer, if a child is a dancer, in our education system, when will they ever practice those things?
All right. And I want us to take a very short commercial break. When we come back, we wind up on that and also look at the